Hello, welcome back to the Herefordshire Gardener channel. My name's Aaron, and in this video today I'm going to be showing you how I prune some of my more mature David Austin shrubs. So as you can see here, I'm just in the process of tidying up all the roses in this room, pruning them, feeding them and mulching. Down this side of the room and up the top end, them roses were planted in around about May 2023. But as I just mentioned, this video is going to be about pruning the more mature roses, of which there are 8 down this pergola structure. These are about 5 or 6 year old now. At the front on both sides, just here and here, we've got 2 Bathshebas from David Austin, then 2 Claire Austins, and then again 2 Bathshebas, and right at the back 2 Claire Austins. If you look, I'll show you what they look like around about this time of the year. So this is January 2025. I'm about to make a start on this quarter of the rose room, which hasn't been touched yet. But if you look carefully, you can see this is Bathsheba. Put on some growth at the end of last season after a dead head. It's quite leggy growth, but you can see there's some lovely fat canes in there. So I'll be pruning to a nice strong structure, and I'm going to show you how I do that. I think sometimes when you come to prune more mature roses, you can feel a little bit sort of flabbergasted, you know, where do you start? Sometimes it's a bit confusing. Have you done enough? Have you not done enough? But hopefully if I talk you through what I do, you'll be able to see how I achieve the growth that I get each year. This is Claire Austin. I mean, if you look there, she's really hunched over. I'm going to be adding maybe 1 or 2 more willow hoops this year because I think we need it. But she was pruned about midway last year. You can see she put on all of this growth. So the idea will be to prune to a level that I can guarantee we're not going to end up with too much of this arching canes like this. As you can see, we've got Bathsheba there with my hand out of the way, and Claire Austin at the end. I think Bathsheba's still got some blooms, you can see just there. So if I take you around to the other side of the rose room, at the other side of this pergola, I've actually pruned these roses and fed them and mulched them just around the roses for now. I will do the rest of the beds once my roses are sorted out, but the roses are a bit more time critical. So that was Bathsheba, and you can see I've gone for a nice opened framework, some really lovely strong canes that are coming out radially. These hoops have meant that I can tie them into the hoops and keep them going in an outward direction. There's really no right or wrong way. You do it how you want your rose to grow, but generally I aim for as open a centre as possible. We've got quite a mature cane in the middle, which I'm not getting rid of because the canes that are coming off are going out radially anyway. But every few years I cut back. You can see I actually cut that this year because there was quite a lot of older growth on top, and that'll hopefully now throw out some new canes, and then in coming years I can cut it back further. But if you look here, you can see some of the canes that have come around the other side. This one, for example, down here, I've tied it into the post and just kept a few of the laterals. So I know that I'll get some nice coverage up this post of roses as well as at the front and sides. So you just, I don't know, when you come to prune it, you just kind of know where to make the cuts. I try always to make a cut at an outward facing bud. As you can see there, I want this growth to grow in this direction so I can direct it up this post. So none of my cuts have got buds that are facing on the inside at the top, because otherwise it will congest the middle. You'll have to forgive the noise. We have got some building work going on at the other side of the garden. So that's Bathsheba, and you can compare it to the rose at the other side. It just looks a lot tidier. It's got some rose feed underneath it, quite a generous amount, as has the clematis that are in pots. One's in pot at one side, in a pot at one side, sorry, and one's in the ground. It was just an experiment I did a few years ago just to see which would survive better, and thankfully they both did really well. These pots have got holes, massive holes drilled in the bottom, so the roots will be going into the soil anyway. So that one is Bathsheba, as I said. If you look at Claire at the other side, and this is what she looks like when she's had a prune. Again, just looking at the canes, you can see I've gone for a relatively fanned out shape. There was one cane here which I decided to keep and start to bend onto the horizontal, just because it'll hopefully produce new shoots all the way along. And remember, if you cut it, there's nothing to stop you cutting it back even further, possibly even when it has blooms if you're not happy, or you can put more stakes in to support it. But that's Claire, and I've cut her to about 3rd ring. Remember, I'm going to be adding a couple of rings on this year. And what I've also done is I've made my cuts at different levels, because I don't want blooms all at the top. I don't think it'd look right having a bare lower half. So the idea is to cascade her blooms all the way up, and I achieve that by making my cuts at different heights. So that's Claire. You can see she needs pruning opposite. I'll go around to her again in a second, because she's the one that I'm going to do the video on. Here you can see we've got another Bathsheba, and the mulch just helps to tidy it up at the base as well. But that's lovely. So if I get down, you can see the different levels at which I've made my cuts, and some of them, like that one, I'm going to train up that post again to give me a bit more fill higher up. And then finally you've got Claire Austin at the end, just there. They look so much better when they've had a prune. So I'll just take you around to Claire Austin. I'll move some of my stuff and I'll make a start and take you through the steps that I follow to get her pruned. I need to move this board up. I was going to do Bathsheba for you in this video, but I think this one just looks a bit more challenging. So it makes sense to do this one and just show you, like, where would you start with this? How would you even make a start? There is a bit of deadwood I can see at the bottom, and down there she's heavily congested. I need to just work her out, and then she's probably going to be, I don't know, maybe halfway up the 2nd ring. Possibly some of the canes might be left up the post to direct her up there, but we'll see. Anyway, stay tuned to find out more. So one of the first things I tend to do is just give my blades a real good clean with some sanitizing wipes, top and bottom, back and side, just between roses, because if there's any disease on any of the ones that I've pruned, I don't want to be transferring them across. So make sure that the wipes have got good contact time as well. Squeeze them out. So I can't do this with one hand, but just clean the blades thoroughly and let them dry. And then I like to put a board down on the ground and something for my knees, just to cushion them, because I'm going to be doing a general tidy up first. And by that I mean looking after the sanitation of the rose. So, you know, roses are affected by black spot each year. It's almost impossible to eliminate it, but you can control it. And if you look at some of the foliage from the previous year, I don't know if that will focus, we'll see if we can get it to come in. Just there you can see we've got probably a bit of frost damage, but also some black spot, and there's definitely the spores hanging around on these leaves. If you look down below, you can see there are a lot of old rose leaves that do have black spot on them. If I don't clear those up, that's a point of infection this year. So I literally get on my hands and knees, and the first thing that I do is clear every leaf in sight, be it decomposing rose leaf or green leaves that have recently fallen. So I'm going to do that first, and then we'll come back to the actual thought process behind pruning this rose, Claire Austin. I've just got a little bucket here, and I'm quite literally just coming along. I shall rake the lawn afterwards, because there's a lot of rose leaves, if you can see, they're quite well disguised, fallen in the lawn, and when I go over it with the mower, it will pick up any remaining ones. But really, this is a good chance to weed as well. I've not weeded any of these beds. As I said to you earlier in this video, my focus at the minute is just getting these roses pruned, because if you look, they're already starting to bud out. It's quite early this year, and I don't want the energy that this rose has put into the ground last year going into you know, causing these dormant buds to break and shoot out, because I might be trimming this back, so that's going to be wasted energy. So the sooner I can get in and prune before the rose gets underway, the better. But some of these leaves, look, they don't look like rose leaves anymore, but that'll be infested with black spot. The spores that overwinter in the living or dead tissue, and once the rain comes along and the right temperatures, they basically start to germinate. And see, even that, you might not even see that against the soil, but I know that's a rose leaf. Yeah, the spores will regerminate, and then before long they'll be back climbing up the base of your rose, leaf to leaf, and you'll have an outbreak. So prevention is definitely advised. So what I'll do, I'm just going to go through this, tidy it up, and then I'll come back in a moment. So this is what the tidy up looks like. It's not perfect, and when I come to mulch the rest of these beds, I'll go over it again, just pulling out any rose leaves, but I'm sure you can see the difference there now. She's nice and clear underneath, all the weeds are cleared from under there. I don't want any of the weeds growing around the base, because they'll just hold moisture underneath the rose, which will encourage things like black spot and obviously stop the rose from drying out. Might rot some of the canes and cause dieback. So I like it nice and open, let the breeze come through. And as you can see, I've tried to clear as many of these old fallen rose leaves as possible. I've only gone so far, just either side of the rose for now. So I'm going to feed these eventually today and put some mulch around this area, not right up to the rose. I never put my mulch right up, I leave about 6 inches around. And then when I come to tidy the rest of these beds this coming week, I'll clean all that out and I'll mulch it so it'll look really neat. So that's the tidied, sanitized rose bed. I've also raked the grass just to get as many of them out as possible. And now what I'm going to do is try and make a start on this Claire Austin. So really it's sort of what I tend to do. If I've got a young shrub, I will do the 3D, so remove anything dead first of all. And just as an example, you can see that down there, you can tell that's dead. It's not green, it's not got anything growing out of it at the moment, so I'd nip that down as far to the base as possible. So anything dead, anything diseased, if you look in the middle there, you can see, if I just zoom in, we've got some dieback going on that, so I'd probably cut that back to the healthy tissue and let it scar over. So that's diseased. And anything damaged, let's see if we've got anything damaged. I mean, that's got dieback on it just there, but by damaged, what we mean usually is any broken canes or any canes that have rubbed together. And I'm just having a look to see, there we go, look, that's a good example. See these two canes here? This one's grown up, this one's grown up there, and they've made contact. Now if you look between them, I have to be careful with Claire because she's very spiky. Can you see that mark there? That's where they've rubbed together. Now that's salvageable, it's not too bad, but in some cases you can get a real rotten area of the cane. Even if the growth above it looks healthy, it's always worth nipping it back to below where the damage is. So yeah, there's a few canes in here that need to be taken out, and she's quite congested in the middle. I want to open her up, so I might be removing quite a large amount of this today. Certainly a lot of this top growth is going, because as you get higher up, it's real thin stuff. You know, these will grow, try and get that to focus, they will grow new shoots, but it's going to be even thinner than this stem, and the blooms are just going to sag down with the weight. So I want to prune back to a strong structure. And I've also got my clematis in here, which I don't want to damage. I'm going to try and get those out carefully so I can wrap them around the post and the ring so that they fill out the structure as well. So what I tend to do first of all is I'll take my cleaned pruners and I'll just focus on one stem at a time. So I'll look, say this stem here that's coming up, I might start at the bottom of that, work out sort of an eventual height. I mean, that goes right up, it's that one there. I don't want it that high. As I said, I'm going to be trying to bring the maximum height to about just above the second ring in this structure. Some of them will be at varying heights. So I would say follow that up and start working on that one and just tidying it up really. So we'll maybe choose that one to start off with as an example. So if we look at the base, you can see down here, this is doing nothing. So I'll probably cut that back at an angle just there, just to tidy it up. This can come out because this is dead, and that'll just open this up a bit. I think what I'll do, because we've got some nice thick canes here, I might try and bend this cane, this one, onto this ring and tie it in eventually. So I could probably get away with keeping up to pencil thickness, so maybe knocking it off here or here. So let's have a look at removing these sections first, and then we'll come back and see what that looks like. So you can see here, I've removed that old stub there, and I've cut that cane right down there, so it's no longer crossing this one. I'm going to work my way up here to this first cane that's coming out. And if you look really carefully, this is the one that I'm going to tie in to this willow hoop. Because I'm keeping this cane, any old leaves, these here, I need to just carefully remove them by applying a little bit of downward pressure close to the stem, trying not to rip the bark. If you just put your finger under like this and just go a little bit of pressure, it should just come straight off. I'm probably going to make a cut here, so I'm not going to bother removing any of this. And with my pruners, what I'm going to do is just cut that about there. Just take that off. That's that cane sorted now. It's going to be in a different position, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to go up and remove the first bit, and all I do is I just put it in a pile. I could put it in the bucket, but it'll end up filling too quick, so those offcuts will go in that white sack, which goes on my burn pile, because all of this material I want to burn it, just to get rid of any spores. As I said, it's a good opportunity if you want to have a go at doing rose cuttings. You've got a lot of material here that you could use. That would make a perfect cutting if you just took the leaves off, stuck that into the ground, or into a pot. It might take, it might not, but it's worth a go. That's if you need any more roses. So moving up this cane, you can see that one eventually I'm going to tie into the ring, so I just need to try and remember that. If we move a little bit further up, just try and have a look, we've got a little bit of dye back there. Let's see if we can get that to focus. You can see that there. So what I'm going to do is come in at an angle just so the rain runs off, and just chop any little bits that fall onto the floor and just putting up into the bucket, just to keep it nice and clear. But as you can see now, where are we? Just trying to get that to focus. There we are. As you can see there, got a nice clean slanted cut. And then that cane actually has a cane just coming out of the back of it. You can see just there. That's a nice strong cane, so I would like to keep that also, but I don't want it to be as tall as it is. So I think I need to just decide how far I'm gonna cut that cane there. It goes up and it goes all the way up to about here. You can see that it's a nice fat cane, and I could potentially bend that around the ring as well. So I think for now, what I'm gonna do is probably just follow that cane up, and I'm going to cut it as close to where it junctions off at the top with this bendy cane above me. I'm just going to make a cut there for now. It's a random cut, I'll tidy it up afterwards. But yeah, you can see some of the string that I used last year, I just cut it off. Just take that, sorry, you'll have to bear with me. But then that'll just lift out. I'm starting to get rid of some of this top growth so I can see what I'm doing. So we cut that one down there. Again, come back to the same cane, I find it's easiest. That's the one that we've just cut just in here. So I'm happy with that. And then following this cane up, which is this one, it comes up and it comes all the way up to the top. Right out here, it's too tall. If I leave that to grow here, it's just going to grow even taller and it's going to be all over the place. So I want to take that quite far back down, and I think that's a nice bud eye. If you look there, it's facing outwards, so the growth is going to grow out in this direction. So what I'm going to do is just cut above that. If you look, my blades are slightly angled down away from the bud. If you look, when I make a cut there, the cut that I've just made is slightly slanted down away from the bud, so the rainwater drops down the back, not onto this bud to rot it. It probably wouldn't, but it's just a habit I have of making the cuts backwards. She's very, very thorny, is Claire, and she's got quite sharp thorns. Just trying to keep the focus of the video for you. So I've just taken a cane off somewhere, and I believe it's this one. And the thing is, again, just trying to be careful with my clematis, which is a bit tangled up in there. So what I'm going to do is just chop this into smaller bite-sized pieces. Just being very careful. You can see that cane is there, and it comes out nicely. Really good material. I mean, for a new rose, you'd never cut that much off, but she's really well established, and I know she's going to throw up loads of canes. So now you can see this was the first one that we pruned and defoliated. Defoliated meaning taking the leaves off. I'm going to train that around the ring. I'll tie it in. We cut that one off. We've just cut that one off, and then that one that came out lower down is just being left to that point for now. I can always come back to those, but already you can see it's opened up just that little bit more space in this area. By the time I finished going through these canes, you'll be able to see almost the same sort of effect. And then what I'll do, when I've got them all down to the levels that I want, I'll work out, do I need to cut any of them further back? Can I tie some of them in? Are some of them crossing? Can I pull them apart and tie them to the structure so they're not crossing? These are the decisions that I need to make. So if we then go ahead and take another cane, so I'm happy from the base upwards. I've dealt with that one. I'm quite happy. It's where I want it to be. So the next one, we go for this one behind. Still looks pretty healthy. Any of these tiny little piddly growths from this was autumn growth, which never made it. What I tend to do is just snap them off or cut them off. If you look here at this particular bit of growth, it's reasonably fat there, but it tends to just get a bit thinner, and obviously it's coming right out of the structure. So I don't really want it that far out, and this might seem quite brutal, but we've got a bud eye there which will give me some growth to come up the front, and we've got a bit of dye back there. So what I'm going to do is just do a tidy cut down here, just straight across there. It's a bit tougher is this, but like that. And now what will happen, if you look carefully, just again try and get the focus, we'll get a new shoot coming out of that section, and it'll be as fat as this stem, so nice and strong, rather than it being really thin and spindly. So again, just taking the old material, just put it to one side, coming back to that stem, then following the principles that we've just done. Again, you can do the dead, diseased and damaged first if you want, but I just find with these large mature shrubs, trying to get into that dead, diseased and damaged is often very difficult because you've got a lot of healthy stems in your way. I only apply the 3Ds to younger shrubs because I can get in there and see what I'm doing. When I'm pruning my mature shrubs, I just get on with it one stem at a time. As you can see here, we've got a little bit of spindly growth. I don't spindly, tiny little rubbish stuff that I don't want. If you follow this further up, you can see I've got a lot of thin stuff coming out because what I'd done is I'd pruned last summer to encourage more blooms, which came out and finished. There's no point in me pruning these back, they're too thin. We've got a little bit of dye back on that. We've got stems all over the place. What I want is a nice, clean, open structure. I don't believe that there are any bud eyes left on this section of the stem. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tidy prune this section. Very simple it by just making a cut across that. And that gets rid of that. That tidies that up. So now the rose, rather than sending the energy into all of that spindly rubbish stuff that I've just cut off, it can focus on sending it up this to hopefully some stronger, cane, so we'll get more blooms, bigger blooms as well. This cane here is coming out, that's fine. So this is the next one up, but again, as you get up over here, look, we've got a little bloom still in January. She's very pink though, and Claire's normally white. It's just to do with the temperature. The colder it is, the more pink in your roses that comes out, and it does make for really interesting displays at different times of the year. So looking here, what would I do with this? Well, I could completely cut it off if I want. However, there is a bud eye there which is growing in, and there's one there. So I think for now, I'm just going to cut it away from the, well, it doesn't really matter because it will drain that way. Just cut it there in the hope that that bud eye will grow out. And I'll just come back to that in a short while. I can always trim it off if I don't want it. Got a little tiny bit of growth there, don't want that, too spindly. If we come round to this section, again, spindly growth right there, don't want that on there. We've got some dieback just there, so I'm just working up the cane. Take that off. It's gone somewhere on there, I'll find it in a short while and put it in the bucket. What we want to do is we want to look next at this section. So that's a nice fat cane, but you can see you've got some thin canes coming off. There is a bud eye just under here, so I think I'm going to do a tidy prune down to that. That just gets rid of a bit more material. You see this? It's not so bad, it's not really thin, but it's thin enough that I don't want it, so I'm just popping that to one side. We come back to the cane that we're focusing on, so just bringing you up from the bottom. We tidied that one, we tidied that, we made decisions all the way up, and we've got this here. So now we're left with this one, which is got a bit of damage there, look, from rubbing. It's quite a big cane, it goes all the way up here. It's got another shoot coming out which is arching up, and that's the one with the bloom that we just saw. So I need to make a decision. If I cut that really high, we're going to end up with another cane that comes out like this. I don't want that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to sacrifice a bit more. Because we've got damaged wood, actually that's real damaged on there. Can you see how torn up that is? That's from the thorns on this side, and this is what happens when they cross. They rock in the wind and it just literally tears it up, and that's a disease entry point. So I'll definitely be cutting that off when I get to that stem. But if you see here, we've got an outward facing bud eye. So I think that'll be quite nice to just come in, trim it above there, take that entire cane out. So ending up with quite a lot of rows on the floor. But trust me, I've done this several years with Claire, and she comes back. As long as I feed her well and look after her, she comes back. So that is nearly that cane sorted. Got a nice clean cut, lots of outward facing bud eyes. A nice clean slant on the top because nothing will grow out of that. If you look here, can you see that little spindly growth? It just goes up to the back where there's a bit of dieback. That's growing inwards. It's no good. I don't want to encourage any bud, so I'm going to just nip that back next to the stem. Again, don't know where that just went. Oh, there it is. That's it. Just crap growth. There are some bud eyes on there, but I don't want any of those to break, as in start growing, because it's just going to give rubbish growth, so get rid. So that's that one tidied. No, actually it's not. See, as you move them, you start seeing, oh, there's a little bit more there. Again, look how spindly that is. And you tend to find in autumn, when the temperature and sunlight drops, you do get weaker growth. In spring you get really nice fat stems, so just cut off these. They're no good. I just get rid of them. Try and nip them back, because I don't want to leave bud eyes even on a little stem, because it'll start to grow out and it'll be even thinner than this, which is even worse. So now I can confidently say that's that stem done. It's quite solid. I will be tying it into the structure anyway, just so that when the weight of the blooms is on these, it's not pulled away. Yeah, so that's second stem done. So we are 2 stems down, probably about another 10 stems or more to go. So what I'll do is I'll work my way through this rose. Hopefully you're finding this video useful. Again, there's no right or wrong way. I've just come in and I've looked at where I want it to grow, and I'm aiming for these nice fat pencil thickness stems, ideally. I'm going to go through all of this and I'm going to come back and show you what it looks like when I've got rid of the top growth. So here we have it. This is the first prune of Claire Austin. You can see she's a lot more open now. There's a lot more thicker canes, sorry. All of that spindly stuff is gone and it's been completely defoliated. I've managed to protect the clematis, which is coming out of that pot there, coming all the way up. We've got a clematis on this side which threw some canes up there. They're thickening up now as well, which is great. But we've got quite a lot of top growth on that clematis, which I will be knocking back. But my hope is with these strands, I'm going to interweave them around the rings. I might show you that today. And what that'll mean is I'll get clematis flowers all the way up through and up the post. That's the idea anyway. But you can see some of these I've left long because I know this is still pliable, that once I've tied that willow ring in properly, because I replaced the strings on these last year. I made these, all of them in the rose room, as you can see, to support my roses. And I just used garden string and a screw on each side of the post. But what I've started doing this year is tying on my string, and same as this, but then actually tying the two strings together at the back of the post, and it just meant that my rings are not moving, which is much more sturdier. So I am replacing them, although to be fair, they've, you know, stood up and they're solid still, absolutely solid. No sign of rot on these rings at all. I caught this earlier as well when I was pruning this, which I thought was really neat. I don't know if you can see that, but they've actually worked as a bit of an insect hotel. So we've got ladybird in there, and that ladybird is a predator, natural predator of the aphid. So very welcome to overwinter in these rings as far as I'm concerned. So what I'm going to do next is, well, what I tend to do next is I'll just re-straighten these rings. They're not too bad, these ones, to be fair, but I'll put some new string on each side, tie them to the post, cut the old strings off, and then once my rings are set, then I can start tying some of these canes. You can see some of them are malpositioned. For example, these two are a bit close to each other, this one and this one, but with these rings what I can do, you see, is I can move that and I could tie it over there if I want, or I could move this one a bit further over here. And that's the beauty of having these, because a bit of string tied around there means that I can really separate these two canes, so there's no chance of them rubbing, and the blooms will be spread out a bit more evenly. So what I'll do next is I'll just sort out the strings, and then I'll come to show you how I tie them up with these willow ring structures. So this is what I mean regarding the strings. Tied them at the front, both sides, pop them around the screws, and I'll wrap them around the screws. The screws are just there, look. I'll wrap them around the screws one more time, but I'm aiming to try and get that ring as level as possible. It's a bit twisted, so do the best that I can. And then what I'll do is I will wrap this green string around the screw one more time to lock it in place, and then I shall tie it at the back of this post behind the wire in front of me. And so you end up with something that looks a little bit like this. So it's wrapped a second time around the screw, it's tied off. That ring, I'll just go around the other side and we'll take a quick look at it. Hopefully it's level. With the ring being slightly twisted, you see, it's not going to be perfect, but I'm quite happy with that. You can see the other rings at the bottom just need a bit of a, that one needs to come up that way, that one needs to come up that way. They don't have to be perfect, but I do want them to look tidy as well. I think with this, if you look, there is a screw at the back with a washer on, which just allows you to turn the ring slightly, and I can always tighten that if I want. Just looking at this, I'm quite happy. I probably will get my screw and just tighten that screw with a screwdriver, but that's roughly what we're looking at. It's because the ring is twisted that it's throwing my eye out, but I think that looks all right. Natural as well, which is good. So I'll go down, finish the rest, and we'll come back and take a look. So that's all the rings re-secured in, all the old string cut off. I'm happy with the positioning of those. I've retightened the screws and the washers at the back. And you know, I use these rings, I used to use peony stakes around the front and bamboo canes, and I'd find after a heavy rainstorm I'd be sticking more canes in here and there. So I came up with these rings to attach to the posts around the room, just so that I've got a almost vase-like neck to support at every level. I'm going to add another maybe 1 or 2 rings onto these climbers because I think they'll take it. But it really does offer me that freedom. If a stem is sagging down like this, all I've got to do is either just hold it up to the ring and tie it in, and it just means everything just looks that much tidier. And come the growing season, I haven't got stems hitting the floor and blooms facing the floor. I want them tall and proud. So the next step that I take when I'm pruning the roses is to decide where I'm going to tie these canes in. Obviously I said earlier on that this one I'm going to put in the horizontal around the ring, and that'll mean that all of these buds, whenever you put a rose cane that's vertical to 45 degrees or more, it causes all the bud eyes to wake up on that portion of the stem, and so obviously you'll get more blooms. They'll probably be a bit smaller on that stem, the blooms that is, but you will get more of them. So you can see already, just looking at her, she looks so much tidier. There are some canes that go, I don't know if you can see, there's one that goes around the back there and it actually goes a lot higher up the back of that post. I'll show you it in a moment because I'm going to be tying that in. So we'll have a look at just tying a few of these in and see how I do that. So as I mentioned earlier, this cane here, we're quite congested with canes around this area, and if I didn't have these supports I could use bamboo canes, but because I've got them, all I can do, you see this stem is coming out the bottom here, it's already going in that direction, so if I just move that out to that section there, obviously if I let go it's going to ping back, but if I put a bit of string here and tie it, that'll stay in that area. So that's what I'm going to do now. And that's what she looks like. So this twine is nice and soft, so it's not going to damage the stem, and I've left plenty of room in the knot. Sorry, I'm trying to do this on the camera behind so she's not strangled. But if you look now, she's held, she was originally here, she's now out in that direction, and we're going to get some foliage of blooms on this side, which is great. It's exactly what I want. So you know, not only are we pruning the rose to the cuts where we want to encourage new growth, but I'm actually positioning the canes as well. You don't want to bend them too far, particularly when they're this thick, because you might snap them at the base. When they're this thin, they've got a bit more ply in them, so this is why I know I can get this in a moment around that ring. So I'm just going to tie up a few more of these and we'll come back and see what it looks like. You can see here just how easy it was. If you remember, right back at the start of this pruning, we started on this cane. We had that bit that was coming out, so I knew I was going to tie it to this ring, and you can see now it's going to sprout out at all of these points. This one will come out as well, so we get a massive fill out the front on that side, lots of blooms. And you can see this cane here now, it's okay, it's going towards the top, but I don't want big long bits coming out here. So again, like I said back at the start of the video, I can decide if I want to prune that now a little bit more, and I think I am. There's a bud eye that's facing out there and one there, so I think what I'm going to do, if I'm being honest, is just take it down to about there and go and fetch that from the back of the rose. But again, it's just sort of finessing the shape, so I know I'm going to get buds that come out there and probably buds that come out there. Once I've added the extra rings later on in the year, you know, there'll be more structure to tie it into. So I'm just going to finish the rest of the tying in. Just coming around the back of this bed, you can see the canes that we've tied in at the front to create a nice open structure. I've kept this cane here coming up from the back, it comes in an outward direction, just tidied it up there a bit. This cane here, I'm probably going to bend around very carefully and just tie that in there like that. This one's nice and flush with the post already, So there's a U-nail there from last year, so I'll just tie that in. Just holds it a little bit then, you see. And all these bud eyes will break, and then I'll train that up there. I'm going to move on to tying that in now, and then I'm going to have a look at detangling these clematis and just trying to work them around and get them back up this post. We'll see what that looks like in a second. And that's tied in nicely there. And that cane which was sticking out, I've bent round and tied in there. And if you look, we've got a bud eye just there. And a few more down here which are going to break and grow up there. So we'll get a little bit of clear on this side, which will be lovely. Now I've got to try and tackle these clematis. I think I might have to cut them down for a start. I'm going to try and keep as much of it as possible, because I did cut it back hard last year and I regretted it in the summer. So we missed the first flush. We just take a quick look at these clematis. This is Royal Velours. I mean, look at the thickness on those canes already. These are about 2 years old now. And if you look very carefully, as you get higher and higher up here, the bud eyes are breaking. And we've got buds all the way up. Look, these ones are a bit more advanced. But yeah, that just goes on and on and on. Look at all this. This one is John Paul II. Absolutely loaded all the way up. And these posts are about, I don't know, I think about 12 foot, something like that. So that's going to put out some serious growth this year. So I'm just going to try and tidy that into the rings and the post to where I want it to grow. And I'll come back and we'll see what it looks like. Right, I'm on to the stage now where I'm going to do a feed and a mulch of both the clematises and the rose. But just to give you an idea, again, it's nothing perfect, but what I've tried to do is get some of the clematis out of this pot, which is Royal Velours, and some out of this growth from the ground, which is John Paul II, and cross them across the front so that we get clematis blooms here. So you can see, for example, some of the canes coming out of that pot are going around here, up the front, all the way up to there. So that'll give us some clematis intermingling with the roses, and it really does look amazing. It doesn't choke the roses off. I found it was one of my concerns in previous years. I thought perhaps it would reduce airflow through the rose, but I haven't found such things happening. So, you know, what I found actually is it complemented the blooms amazingly, and it attracts other beneficial insects as well. So we've also got canes from down here, 2 of them actually. They come up to this point together and then I split them. One of them I run up the back round the other side, and this one I ran up the side here and then leans into that. And then I left the majority of the canes going up. There's a lot of stuff at the top there that doesn't look like it's sprouted much, although there is actually some active buds even up there, you can see. But I've just left that at the top because I want the clematis, when it goes up, to have something to hold on to. So I'm just leaving that there. I'll wrap around the post the wires that are in there, and hopefully on this particular Claire Austin, the combination of the clematis and this rose, I'm really excited to see what that turns out like this year. It looked amazing last year. I'll see if I can get some footage from last year edited into this video, just to give you an idea of what she looked like. But yeah, fabulous. So the next step is just moving on to putting some rose feed at the bottom, which I'm going to do now. I'll just go and grab that there. And then we've got some Jacob's Ladder or Pulmonium, which is the purple stuff you can see in the background. Another amazing perennial, does really well. Clematis up there, can't remember who that one is, but it's bloody going for it, goodness me. Be in flower soon. Look at that perfect bloom from Claire. Oh, come on, focus. Look at that. That is like double whipped cream, isn't it? Oh, yes please. Beautiful. And I love this paired with the Pulmonium in this example. It's just coming over now, They form these seed heads, but sometimes if you knock these back, they'll reflower, they'll rebloom. But I think that purple with the white looks wonderful. I just love this rose. It is beautiful, despite the fact that when she's finished and she drops her petals like all at once, she's completely naked in a flash. And it does make a mess on the floor. I still think she's worth having because she's wonderful. And look at all those blooms. Have you ever seen so many blooms? That's actually one stem in there, bar this one. No, actually I've chopped that off. That's all just one bloom. One stem, sorry. It's like a candelabra, isn't it? Got a Beauty and the Beast. Yeah, if you look up, look at that clematis. Feels like it's reaching for the power lines above, which are way above. It'll never reach there, thank God. So this is just a pelleted feed from Westland, which is a rose feed that I tend to use for my roses, and I'm quite generous with my feeding. They're very hungry plants. This is a slow release fertilizer, so it breaks down over the next 6 weeks. I will also be spraying my roses periodically, maybe once a month to once every 2 weeks, with sulfur rose, which is non-toxic to animals and insects, but it's toxic to black spot. Again, whenever I'm going through these, if I see anything that resembles old rose leaves, I just get rid. And all I'm aiming to do here, you see, is just pop generous amount of feed around the base of the clematis as well. Clematis are very hungry, just like the roses. They'll put on a lot more flowers if I give them generous feed. So I'm quite happy to just pop quite a bit of feed on here. Remember, this is a mature rose as well, and with this being a slow breakdown fertilizer, it's not gonna have an immediate effect. I'm going to be doing a root soak with Uncle Tom's tonic as well periodically, and when the leaves start to break out on the clematis and the roses, then they'll get a foliar spray. But I'm just making sure that everywhere where the root zone is on the rose, that there is enough food. These will get a feed again a bit later in the summer. I'm just putting some around the base of the pots. As I said, these pots have got large holes drilled in, and so the clematis, the roots will be going down into the clay soil, which will be excellent. You can tell just by the thickness of these canes. And then I just pop a bit on top of the pot as well, just so that's got a bit to go down in. This is the finished pruned, fed and mulched rose. We've been having quite a lot of rain recently, so the ground is a bit muddy, but it will recover. I know it looks a bit dirty at the moment, but trust me, it does definitely recover. It'll need cutting, I reckon, in about 2 to 3 weeks anyway. But there she is, rings reset. Sorry, I'm just a little bit out of breath because I've just raked all of this, popped it all into that bucket over there. So as you can see here, Claire is pruned. We've tried to make sure nothing's crossing, everything's to an outward facing bud. She's got a lovely strong framework there, tied in some of the canes that needed tying in to the willow hoops. Obviously we'll get growth that comes out, we can tie that in as we go along, and I'm going to put maybe 1, possibly 2 more hoops on this year, just because in previous years I've always had her at this height, but I quite like to fill these arches if I can with roses, because now we've got the rose cage in the middle. I think if I can get them to go up, I'm going to do that. I think they're meant to grow to about 10 foot anyway, so I could certainly get them higher than this. Just got to make sure that when I make my cuts, I stagger them so I've actually got blooms at head height as well as low down. Really pleased with this clematis and how that turned out. So as I said earlier, we've got lots of crossing stems, and that should hopefully fill out. I fed the clematis, that'll get a top dressing of compost. I don't tend to put the bark on top of there, and as I said earlier, I don't mulch right up to the rose. I leave, if you look carefully, there's a gap around the rose. I don't want that rotting wood chip, which is just broken down trees from the garden. We were having a bit of renovation work done, so I asked them if I could keep it. It's been sort of sitting there for a good 6-7 months. It's already started to break down, and then I just barrowed it up, wheelbarrow that is, and I just leave about 3 or 4, sometimes a bit more inches around the base, and I can just see what's going on then. Nothing's coming up to the canes where it might be able to rot them, for example. You'd be all right putting things like compost and stuff around there, but rotting material like bark, I don't want the organisms that are in here up around those stems, just in case they do introduce disease. And you can use anything to mulch. Some people use wood chip, some people use well-rotted horse manure, which is excellent for roses. Some people just use compost. Organic matter really is what you want, something that's going to feed the soil and the organisms in the soil, and then of course that's going to help the health of your rose and clematis in my case, and other companion plants. In the meantime, I'll just take you around the other side. I'm going to move on to this Bathsheba in a moment. It's not taken that long to get all of this done. This is the other side. As you can see, I've only mulched around the rose and the clematis. I will mulch the rest of the beds, but as mentioned earlier in the video, I'm making it a priority to get all these roses and rings sorted out, and then the mulching can be done in, say, the next week or so. But just look at those really thick canes for the clematis. Claire Austin at the back there. I mean, she's going to burst out all along this stem. I'd be really keen to see how this turns out this year. I've got high hopes, provided the weather remains good. So that's it. Now what I've got to do, just like I've done on this side, I need to do Claire, Bathsheba, and then I've got these younger roses which went in, this will be their 3rd season. They went in May 23. This is Summer Song. The storms knocked the string off of that, but this is why I'm resetting them and tying them at the back so they won't move. Got a lot of thick canes on this Summer Song, absolutely loads. I'm looking forward to tying that into those rings. I think I'm going to get loads of blooms off it this year. Ancient Mariner in that one. Then we've got the Poet's Wife next to that, and then Olivia Rose Austin there. This one is Nye Bevan in the corner, and at the back is Ghislaine de Filigon, which isn't a David Austin rose but is a repeat short rambler, and it's beautiful, especially in the cooler months, because the roses look like miniature a Shropshire Lad type blooms. Beautiful. And then next to this one we've got Wild Eve. I need to tidy all this up though. I've not done any of this yet. We've got some hips on that. That would be interesting to try and grow those seeds on, because I don't know who crossed with who. We've got that many roses here. We've got some hips on Claire as well. Look at all these hips. My God, only just noticing that. There'll be some viable seeds in there. They've had a winter of cold as well. Be interesting. Absolutely loaded. Look how big she is. She's like literally nearly at the top already on that one, but I just need to tidy her. I never really like it when it gets to this time of year, because they're just, you know, you kind of let them go for the winter. We've had such a mild winter this year, they've barely even dropped the leaves. Look at this Bathsheba. You wouldn't even think we were in January looking at her. You can see some old blooms there that are still stuck on the bush, but she's starting to wake up. I can just see already, looking at these stems. Look at all them buds. These are not dormant buds anymore. They're already breaking all the way up. So we're already getting the plant waking up. I need to get on with pruning these this weekend before the plant puts any more energy into those buds. That Bathsheba is absolutely huge. This is just one shrub, by the way. Just one planted. So yeah, I will work my way through this section, and I'll do some more update videos as the roses start to come into bloom. I'm going to do some update videos on how I use the Uncle Tom's Tonic, which is what I've started using this year, and also the Sulphur Rose. And I'm just going to try and keep up to date with regular videos, really, just to show you how everything's coming on, and of course what's in the beds, etc., to complement the roses. And then once each rose starts to bloom, I think we'll do a rose review video, up and personal, tell you what I think of the rose, show you it growing in the garden, and hopefully inspire you, if you haven't already got a David Austin rose or haven't got these particular varieties, to get yourself one. I think most of these in this rose room I chose because they do really well. I really love them. If you're interested, I've already done this side, so that's Bring Me Sunshine, been in there 2 seasons. Got some lovely strong canes on this. So if you look at this, lovely coloured canes as well. We've tied this cane in and flattened it out there so we get some bud breakage on that. This is a younger rose, obviously. I've just fanned it out so it's hollow in the middle, but the rose just radiates out. And again, I use these rings. You could use anything, canes, peony stakes. This is a game changer for me, these rings. I think they look really pretty, particularly when the roses start growing through. You just see a glimpse of the twisted willow here and there, which is just beautiful. But they just simplified things for me. I have got videos on my YouTube channel of how I made them. They're so easy to make and so inexpensive. I think for all of the willow in this room, I don't think I paid more than about £160 for, and I've still got a quarter of it left. When you consider how expensive obelisks are, you know, this is a much more cost effective and I think prettier a way of doing things. Obelisks will last forever, these won't. But having said that, this is allowing these canes to become strong and thick in the shape that I want them to be. So even in years to come, if I decide I don't want to use these willow rings anymore, the rose bushes will have, just like the Bathshebas, they will have that solid core, and they probably won't need the rings as much, particularly low down. So if anything, they help you to set a solid framework on your roses. This is Boscobel. I always find the most scented roses are really thorny. I think it's something in the genetics of the roses. Think of Gertrude, for example, or Harlow Carr. Highly scented and will rip your hands to shreds for the pleasure. So yeah, this is Boscobel. Got lots of nice canes coming out of there. See, again, put them at different heights. I'm trying to get Boscobel to go that way a little bit, so we've got some canes down there and some inward stems a little bit here, just to try and encourage that one to come round there. Lots of lovely companion plants and bulbs to come up soon. This is Elizabeth, absolutely amazing rose. Colours and everything beautiful. She pretty much filled out that entire ring structure last year, so I've given her a bit of a harder prune this year, and put the canes really where I wanted them. Again, left a nice open centre, as you can see. The clematis here is Prince Charles, and I did actually knock that one back because it was in the way, but I wish I hadn't have done now. It will send up new shoots and it will fill out all of that because that was massive last year, but I wish I'd have brought some of them out to the front and twisted them around the hoops, but never mind. A bit like I've just done on Claire Austin, but I guess you live and learn. Charles is doing quite fine there anyway. And then this is my bargain bucket Harlow Carr. It was literally one cane when I bought it that was alive. All the other canes had died. I think we got it for about, my partner's grandmother bought it for me. I think she paid about £5 for it or something like that, which is a bargain. So I've looked after it. It's been in here since about, I'd say, August 23. So it had a full set of growth last year, and then this is its second season, I suppose you could say. But we've got some reasonable canes, very, very spiky, as I just said. but I'll get it trained. You'd be surprised, they will respond and send up new shoots from the bottom. That's Ghislaine de Filigonde pruned, trained into this. You can see there I've had to use a bamboo cane just because we've got a few canes on that side that I didn't want to get rid of. But completely defoliated. It's already had its sulphur rose sprayed on it, as has this one, which is the shepherdess in front. I actually put these roses in the ground before I had made the rings. The idea was just to get once I had the roses in the pots from the garden centre, I just wanted to get them in, the sooner the better, because it just gives them time to put on more roots and establish. And so if you look carefully, not with all of them, but with some of them, they're not quite in the centre of the ring, but it doesn't matter. You know, these rings still provide the structure that they need to be tied into and to grow through. Through here, this one is Port Sunlight. I took all the cards out this year because they were just cracking. Once they get a bit of sun onto them, they just decompose and they were breaking apart, so I just took them out. I know who they are. I've made a document of who I've got and where they are. So yeah, still a baby, and it's had a lightish prune and will hopefully grow up there. Beautiful rose, and then we're back onto the main arch. So that's Claire. And then we've got Bathsheba. Look at the size of those canes. I mean, this is what you will get once the rose starts to get a lot older. As I said, these are about 5 to 6 years old. So plenty of vigour in them. Need to tidy this up with mulch. Another Claire Austin there. And then back to Bathsheba. This is the new rose ring. Rose ring, it's not a rose ring, it's a rose cage. I've got bloody willow rings on the brain. Dug a little border out there last year. This was done at the tail end of summer when this was built. I'm going to get a lovely little table for the inside of there, and it came with sort of cushions, which I'm getting covers made for. Who have we got in here? So I bought 2 roses that I've been after for a while. So this is Wollerton Old Hall in here, and the idea will be to get Wollerton to go straight onto this cage, climb over it, put stems along, basically just get it covering. This here is Heritage, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stems on this rose, and as you can see, she's already budding out. These are my own cuttings that I did in June 23, if you look at my previous videos. I'm going to be doing some update videos on these because I've got loads up in the kitchen garden. I've probably got about 150 roses up there that need pruning, feeding, mulching. They're all in pots, and they're ready to go into another project in the garden. But some of them are Heritage, which is a stunning David Austin rose. Absolutely gorgeous scent and beautiful light pink blooms that just seem to glow in the sunlight. They're absolutely amazing. So this obviously had last year to put on growth, and of course we got more canes. They're still real babies though, these, even smaller than, you know, the likes of Port Sunlight and the Shepherdess, etc. But they'll put on some good wood in years to come. I just need to protect these from the rabbits. So again, I'm going to put a bit of a meshing up here this year just to keep the buggers off. But I put a Heritage in here. There's another one here, so between each climber, so that's Wollerton Old Hall and that's Strawberry Hill, I've got 2 Heritage between and a load of companion plants. So Strawberry Hill hopefully will go up and over there and mingle in with Wollerton Old Hall, which would be nice. And then of course in this section we've got another Heritage and another one just there. And we're hoping that there, because it's a shrub rose, grows to about 4 foot, 4 foot, 5 foot, somewhere around there. It should be filling this centre out. And then of course, opposite to over there, we've got Wollerton Old Hall again. And down at the front now, we've got Strawberry Hill. And then again, in between these, we've got 2 Heritage, one there and one here. I mean, they're not too bad to say that they were made from cuttings. And I literally just, my cuttings were probably maybe a little bit wider than this, pencil thickness, but all of this has grown out of that. And I've got high hopes that these are going to form at least small shrubs this year. They flowered last year pretty well. Beautiful blooms, really nice big blooms. So it'd be really nice to show you what this looks like when it comes out. And of course I need to mulch that bed. I'm not going to go through this section because obviously there's loads more roses, a different one on each post, all David Austin. But you can see I've gone through those, tied up all the rings again, the proper way this time. Yeah, I mean, going on a little bit here, but if you look at the, this is Dame Judy Dench. She didn't really put on much growth last year. She was planted in May, June 23, and she was just throwing up these tiny little sticks and had a few blooms. And I was just thinking, oh God, I don't know if I like her. But I've obviously given her the time, and you know, towards the tail end of summer, she sent up these massive canes. So much so, look at all these at the back, that I've been able to bend them up around the willow. And as I said to you earlier, when you bend them like this, they start to express their buds along the full length. So we've got canes coming up the front, round the back, this one going around the back, we've got this one going up the front. I think she's going to be loaded this year with blooms, so that's really, really exciting. That's Tranquility, Princess Anne down there. So yeah, stay tuned. I will do my best, work and all, to keep you updated with the progress and just show you them as they come out. I've got some amazing rose projects going on over in that corner of the garden. You can see I don't know if you've watched any of my previous videos, but there used to be hedges in there. There used to be 2 rooms. I'll give you a little sneak peek, but that's all been taken out and new trees have been planted in there. There's about 20 trees that have gone in that section of the garden alone. And they're beautiful. I think there's about 4 or 5 cherries, some maple trees, lime trees. Yeah, they're going to look lovely. There'll be a gorgeous backdrop, a bit like sort of the rest of the garden really. Just nice when it all comes out. And we're very lucky because the sun quite literally comes right over this room, all the way over like this in the summer. And so it's full sun all day. Probably why the roses grow so well. They do like sun. And as we're in Herefordshire, UK, it doesn't get too hot usually. A few summers we've had recently, we've had some scorching days. But on the whole, we've got a pretty reasonable weather system here. So I'm going to wrap that up. If you've got any questions, any comments for the video, please leave them in the comment section and I'll do my best to get back in time. But I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thanks again for watching. Take care till next time. Bye.